second exhibition in Brazil, I understand, Raquel Arnaud. And in reading about your work and speaking with you, you often use this term of concrete art, which is of course a European tradition, but one that was very important here in Brazil. Could you tell me what this word concrete art means to you and how you understand it in your own practice?
In terms of my work, it means that I use specific forms which are more or less related to concrete art, but it's, of course, I'm aware about the tradition and the rules, more or less, which was perfectly set maybe in the 60s. But so far now I'm a new generation, and I started with this structure and tried to find new ways also for my own work.
I mean, one of the things that we look at a work like this that makes it so different from concrete art is this use of perspective and the use of sort of illusion. You know, they're pieces that at first glance we don't know how deep they are, we don't know exactly where the planes go. So what was it for you to introduce this kind of question of illusion, which in a way seems to sort of contradict that very hard idea of concrete art just signifying itself?
And my first interest was to find a personal way of defining a painting. As I've studied painting, I wanted to make a painting, and I thought about what is more or less the essential stuff I need for a painting. So it's a body, it's a color, and it has to do with the question of the space. The space means in 2 dimensions and also in 3 dimensions. At some point I realized that this is more or less the breaking point. Also, if you transfer it now to nowadays, the question of what is real and what is more or less the image of something. And nowadays with the digital medias and this more or less debate about what is real and what is supposed to be a picture from a real thing. This was the interesting point and opened for me exactly the gap to go into this research about illusion. So this moment of having a construction that gives an illusion of space gave me the possibility to have this ambitious situation between real and imagination, and also to create more or less an object which is able to combine these 2 things.
One of the things I think that's interesting is that it must be very hard to photograph these works because of this question of illusion. You know, so when you first see them, you don't immediately understand what you're seeing, and as you move around them and as you sort of physically see, you know, that this surface is an actual existing surface and that this is a projected shadow. How have you sort of been able to deal with this question of the representation of the illusion of your own representation of illusion?
Now, over the years I discovered more or less it's to discuss this point I have really to reduce all the elements to the main point in which terms I want to use them. So color means I use color in a simple, clear way. It's a flat, monochromatic thing. I have more or less a material which is visible, which is steel, which is for me, emotionally wise, it's a material which is able to be sharp precisely, but also has a kind of emotional part. And of course the clear forms, which helps a lot to have this combination between color, form, space. In combination to the position on the wall and in the relation to the angle you look at this piece, there you have these different aspects. Is it a flat thing, or is it a volume? Is it something you might touch, or is it just something which is in your idea and your illusion?
Let's talk a bit about color. You mentioned color before. Your works, I believe, are all monochromes, or almost all monochromes, but some of them are quite unusual. They're not necessarily primary colors, but quite subtle tones. How do you go about the process of choosing the color for a particular form?
Of course, in the first view, it's only one color, but you have always the shadow and the material. So it's all a reference to the gray shades of the steel. So this is a relation which makes things also interesting, because sometimes you have a big contrast between dark and light, or you have a simultaneous contrast between the gray, which is almost taking the color of the work. And this gives me more or less the full range of experiments in terms of color, which I can use. My range of colors is in between these red and blue, because they have the biggest range of possibilities.
Well, thank you very much, Wolfram.
Thank you.